The slides are up. I have a bazillion conflicts of interest, so it'll take 20 minutes to go through these. So, and first of all, I'll just say all my slides are going to be on SlideShare after this. So I'll just tweet it out for that. All right, so obviously we're in big data. This is an audience that gets all of this. Every magazine, every journal now talks about big data, and of course, along with big data and AI. The Economist has covered this twice, as you can see at the bottom. The bottom right is my favorite because The Economist now suggests that data is as valuable as oil. And I don't like oil as an analogy because oil is very grabby, right? If I get that barrel of oil, you can't have it. Data isn't like that, right? I can take that barrel of data and build something from it, and you can too. It's not something that when I possess data, you can't have it. So the phrase I love is data isn't the new oil, data is the new soil that we use to plant seeds and watch them grow. But certainly it's a popular time, and certainly in our field as well. We have top books on AI medicine, we have blog posts, old journals are back new again. Radiology has their radiology AI, so many journals are starting AI supplement or sub-journals in Nature Medicine, which I thought was the most molecular journals covering this, as is JAMA and there now. Well, and certainly the FDA is covering AI. There are three major covers of major reports that have really influenced my career in the last 5 years. You know, can you imagine the FDA talking about AI?
Excuse me, Atul?
Yes.
You're cutting in and out a little bit with us.
I'll lean forward. Lean in, as they say. Is that any better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
All right. I'll speak even louder. The FDA is covering three topics of my interest: AI as a medical device. Imagine the FDA talking about AI, real-world evidence, which is all that clinical data, which I'll talk about in a moment, and a digital health innovation plan. So this is an exciting time to be doing this kind of research and development, certainly in academia. And of course, companies have got it. So here are the first three companies that got cloud-based AI tools or diagnostics approved by the FDA. You can see it's only 2017, 3 years ago. Deep learning for cardiovascular diagnoses, stroke triage, diabetic retinopathy, of course. But TMF has made this graphic, which itself is already old. The first 20, almost 40, I think, on this graphic of all the companies that have since been approved with AI and machine learning in medicine. So very exciting time now to be developing. On the left, you see the timeline. On the right, you see all the areas of medicine that are really being influenced by AI. All right, so at UCSF, we're building this out. When we are eventually able to get back on campus, we're going to be moving into that brand new building on the top left there. It's almost done, but you can't even touch that building at this point. But in the meantime, we're slumming it out in this other brand new building on the bottom right, but we're actually all at home. And our strategy is really to recruit the best talent we can to really think about AI, machine learning, and health data intelligence. But it's beyond genomics. I know this is ISMB. It's a lot of bioinformatics here. I'm, like Patty, going to try to get you to think a little bit more about medical informatics and the ultimate of human physiology, those measurements we have in all of these records. Just the diversity of faculty we've been recruiting every year. So anything if you want to move and join us, for joining us. With all that, let me reintroduce the University of California to you. What is it that we have? An incredible setup, 10 campuses, 3 national labs, 200,000 employees, and that's going to come up again in a moment, which is going to be our test bed for interventions in healthcare, and 250,000 students per year. And by the way, like all the rest of you, we're trying to figure out what to do with 250,000 students and 200,000 employees at this point. 6 medical schools, we train half the medical students and residents in California, 5,000 doctors get a paycheck from us, but 100,000 doctors write orders on our patients. Of course, you're not too shabby in health system, somewhere in the top 10, all the rest. And what we decided 3 years ago as a system, now 4 years ago, is we are aspirationally going to build a single accountable care organization for the entire University of California, so spanning all 5 academic medical centers. Now, this is going to take 10 years, as you can see at the bottom of the graphic here. So you can't sign up for this right away, but eventually we will have one single health organization that covers the risk and covers the care of all University of California patients. But the minute you decide you want to do this as a business reason, you've got to start to put the data together, right? Well, whose care are we going to use? UCSF takes care of patients this way, UCLA does it that way, which is the right way. And all of a sudden now, for a business reason, you want to put the data together, you start to figure out what is the right way to practice medicine. And so lesson number one of how many I'm going to talk about today is it's really great to come up with academic reasons to put data sets together. But it is so much more wonderful when you have a business reason. Because all of a sudden you get resources.
Atul?
Yes.
We may need to ask you to remove your headset because it is so choppy that it's a little hard
All right,
to hear.
Let me see. Is this any better?
It is slightly better.
All right, is this any better?
It is better.
Fantastic.
All right, I got my backup iPhone here too. Give me a second here. I'm going to mute this one. Oh, hold on. All right. No echo? Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
All right. Sorry for everyone. I see the Q&A going crazy over my lack of a clear voice here. So the punchline on this slide is because the entire University of California has agreed within 5 to 10 years to make a single accountable care organization, 5 academic medical centers here, because we have a business reason to put our data together, it is so much more potent with resources than if we just had academic reasons to put this data set together. So I will show the data that we're really talking about putting together are electronic health record data. Now, bioinformaticians might not be that familiar with this data, but boy, is it expensive. The entire United States has been moving towards putting our medical records electronic into computers. You can see the price tag for some of these efforts. Sutter, which is our neighbor in California, spent $1 billion. Partners, which is in Boston, spent $1.2 billion, and Kaiser Permanente has spent $4 billion. Now, the narrative I want to make sure you come away with is, in my opinion, the United States has been spending billions and billions of dollars putting these systems in and rounding error close to zero using any of this data right now. Maybe if a patient comes back to the hospital, we look up their old records, but in general, we're barely using this data. I'm going to call this data the most expensive data in America right now. We're paying doctors to type all this in. It will be a national tragedy if we don't use this data to improve the practice of medicine. That is, in my opinion, given how much money we've spent on this. So we are putting all this data in one large data warehouse. You can see the logos at the bottom here: UCSF, UCLA, Irvine, Davis, San Diego, and Riverside. Now, Riverside is tiny. It's a brand new medical school. They have a few community practices. The rest of these are enormous academic medical centers, and all that data goes into one central health data warehouse. This is done. This is there now, right? So these are the 6 medical schools. We have really 5 big academic medical centers, and then Riverside. The number we love to start with is 15 million patients. We've been treating 15 million patients for the last 15 years. It's a nice round number because it's 5% of the US population. So the University of California has been treating 5% of the US population, enormous data, what data is. But if you count from when we installed Epic, which is a modern electronic health record system in 2012 forward, it's about 5 to 6 million patients. You can see the numbers there: 164 million encounters. My favorite, 682 million medication orders, 700 million diagnosis codes, and close to 2 billion blood tests and vital signs. Some regulatory data, we have all the text elements coming in. We run the death index for California, so death as an outcome, we get that merged in there too. With claims data and the rest I'm not going to talk about here. Now, first off, let me just say, we have many operational teams benefiting from this data. Now, I'm not going to go into any of these details, but the punchline here is it's so much easier to get these efforts funded in an academic medical center in a medical school if the hospital operation teams want this to happen. Because you have hospital revenue and you have academic revenue, and this starts to pay for this, right? We've got quality measures that are happening consistently on the left, saving money on drugs that we could just prescribe in generic form instead of brand name on the top right. We have how much it costs us to take care of patients and putting patients and cohorts on dashboards. But I'm going to talk about research use here in the last 10 minutes or so. And the phrase I'm going to use is real world data, because this is what the FDA uses. And just to give you an idea, real world data is what we used to call just clinical data, but also it's real world because this is how we actually practice medicine. Here are 3 very popular drugs right now. And to give you an example, AbbVie Humira, I'll walk through that one. It's a well-known monoclonal antibody for rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease. If you look at the original pivotal studies, those research projects at the beginning, you can see some of the numbers, right? 500 patients treated in the first one, 600 in the second one. And for inflammatory bowel disease, you had 299, 854. That's great. So it adds up to maybe 2,000 or so patients that were treated. Not all of those were actually treated, some were placebo.
And then boom, the University of California since then has treated 11,000 patients with this drug, right? Probably 10 times more, maybe 20 times more than the original pivotal studies. Celgene Revlimid, right? They got their approval with their pivotal study of 1,600 patients. Boom, we've treated more than 5,000 patients with this drug now. Regeneron's Praluent's very expensive drug, brand new. They got their drug, their first study, 2,000 patients. We've treated already 1,300 patients in the first year or two. So what this is saying is, it naturally leads to the question, very simple question, do we see the same effects of these drugs in our patients like they saw in the trials, right? Very simple question. The trials are great, but they're kind of artificial, right? They're very controlled cohorts. What do we see our patients benefiting from? And you know what, by the way, if the drug doesn't really work in our patients like they said it would, maybe we should pay less for this drug, right? Maybe we should be starting, and maybe this is a way to use science and data to tackle the drug pricing problem eventually. So we came up with 21 such uses for real world data. The link at the bottom there is our paper in JCI. Vivek did yeoman's work writing this together with me. And I point you to this, I think it's open access now as part of their big data issue to go further. I'll tweet out all these links afterwards. Let me walk you through a couple of test cases, and I'm going to end with COVID and where we are with that. But this is an AI panel, so I want to make sure we talk about this. Here's an example of how to use AI to think about how to take care of patients. So this is how we take care of patients with type 2 diabetes, right? It's a world health plague right now because of aging and also obesity, lack of exercise. And this is a little bit old now, but this is how the American Diabetes Association says to take care of patients with diabetes. You start at the top, healthy eating, weight control, exercise. When that fails, you go to big metformin in the middle. When that fails, you got these 6 kind of choices in the middle. And when that fails, you add in one of the other 5 choices in the down here. And when everything fails, you go to metformin and insulin at the bottom. But the simple question is, well, which of these 6 choices do you choose in the middle? Because it makes a difference. Some of those boxes, I'll circle some, are 200 times the cost of some of these other boxes. But they're all kind of the same shape and pastel colors. Which one do you choose? So the analogy I like to use is, maybe if you've been to Japan, you've seen a pachinko machine. That's how some of these guidelines are sometimes. You drop a ball at the top and then you wait to see how it goes down the machine. That's, I think, how literally clinical care is with the guideline. Now, to be fair for a second, this is one of the lucky diseases where we have a consensus guideline. The vast majority, we don't have a graphic like this, okay, to be clear. But the simple question is, what do we do for our patients? Now, with all the data in one place, we can start to ask. So here are this is work by Tom Peterson. Here are 26,822 patients we are starting on a drug with type 2 diabetes. And we used to call these diabetes donuts, but we realized donuts are inappropriate for diabetes, so we call these lifesaver plots, right? And think of it like a pie chart, and pie is inappropriate for diabetes as well, but think of it as a pie chart. The yellow there means a third of them are starting on metformin, a third are starting on insulin, that's kind of interesting, and then all the other colors and slices are other different combinations of drugs that we're using to start patients on diabetes. Okay, and so how does this work? Well, we start a patient with diabetes on a drug, and we say, okay, let's see how you do and come back to the clinic in 90 days. And what do we do next? Well, that's the next move, right? I'm using this word move because we make a move as doctors, and then the disease makes a move, or the patient makes a move, we make the next move. So the next time drug we choose in 90 days is here. Yellow to yellow means they're still on metformin, but we had to tweak the dose. And the other colors mean we added a drug, subtracted a drug. Go home, come back in 90 days. Here's the third move. Go back, come home in 90 days, and here's the fourth move. And what we realize is just the first 4 moves of this game, we have 1,600 different ways to play this in UCSF, right? Probably too many ways to play. Now with one button, we can do this across the entire University of California. So you're looking at 160,000 type 2 diabetes patients on the left, and you can see all of the different practice patterns. We have 5,000 ways to do this in the University of California. And now this is how we start to get the unnecessary and expensive practice variation and how to tackle this. But you can start to say, maybe this is like a chess game, right? Because I'm using the word moves and games here because computers are great at learning how to play move-based games, right? You make a move, you start to predict where the patient goes next. And indeed, with all of this data, we can start to plot predicted hemoglobin A1C in 90 days versus the observed. And we're pretty good at this plot now. We can predict where a patient's going to be in 90 days here. And what that means is we can start to come up with data and AI-driven decision support tools. Here's a very simple one. You don't even need this deep learning for this one. Remember the yellow to yellow, right? Metformin. Can we just predict who does well with metformin and who needs something more? A simple decision tree gets you that, right? If your hemoglobin A1C, your blood test is over 8.8, or your fasting sugar is over 206, you're in the red boxes. That means don't even bother starting the metformin. We know it's not going to work. I know what the consensus guideline says, but in 100,000 patients we've treated at the University of California, we know you're going to need something more, right? Make the next move first, right? Make it earlier to get that patient to therapy faster. So we can learn this from the data. All right, let's switch to COVID here in the last 4 minutes. COVID, we were happy in the University of California getting data on a monthly basis for this data warehouse. With COVID, we had to switch to daily. So here are just examples of the tweets we send out and the emails we send out every morning to 500 people, the CDC Operations Center, the FDA, lots of folks get this. For COVID, it's really, we're still learning as we go. The pipeline continually needs fixing and cleaning, but I have an incredible team at the University of California to do this. This is data from yesterday, right? So we do this every day, every morning. On the right, you see the 34 different ways we have of ordering a COVID test in the University of California. Got to harmonize all of these tests every morning. Send out to Quest and LabCorp companies, all the internal tests, rapid, lower respiratory, upper respiratory, all of this data gets harmonized every single morning from 6 to 8 in the morning. And then we send out the data from 9 to 11 in the morning. These are our latest test results as of yesterday. Nearly 150,000 patients tested, of which 5,100 are positive. And on the bottom left there, you can see all the different patients in the last 7 days, their home zip codes, age and sex at the bottom here. And these are our latest numbers as of yesterday. So 3.5% of our patients tested are positive. 27%, if you're positive, you got a 27% chance of getting admitted. And then of the ones that are admitted, 8% have passed away, or 2.26%. So that's a crude kind of case fatality rate of 2.26% right now. And again, we calculate this every single day. We have all of these numbers. You can see the inpatient census, how many are the ICU ventilator. And so we learned a lot of lessons along the way here because this data is constantly needs harmonization. We have 300 lines of code just to figure out if someone's on a ventilator. And it's a different 300 lines of code at another health center in our system here. Because just because it's an epic doesn't mean all of these kind of phenotypes are well defined here at all. It takes time. So what did we learn along the way here? We had to learn how to work with great teams and successfully share what's working on one campus and get it to work on the other campuses. Harmonizing data elements means linking EPIC programmers, our electronic health record, with the clinicians, with our research groups at the CTSI, what we call BRAVE. On the right there, you see, for example, we were working on pop health tools all the time. All of a sudden, we had to harmonize ECMO settings, right? ECMO is the most invasive thing we could do to patients, like a heart-lung machine. UCLA had theirs already harmonized. We had to borrow their tools and harmonization elements in SNOMED to get it to work on the other campuses here. And the pandemic meant that we had to really get information to a lot of agencies as quick as we could. But we also learned that the public wants to see our data. We started to tweet this data every single day. And you can see over the last 90 days, 1.8 million people have seen these tweets. Because COVID is an invisible disease. It's absolutely invisible. And unless you have a family member with this disease or friends, all you see are the laws, the restrictions, the masks, and you know that's causing trouble right now. So I think the more that we actually get this data to the public, the more we keep them informed that this is actually a real disease here. So let me just stop there since I'm at time and turn it back over to the organizers. I apologize for audio quality at the beginning here. I'm still, 4 months into this, still trying to figure out how